Hey Nadine, how you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for joining me on the Talent Inside podcast. Really keen
No,
to get your knowledge, experience, and background.
yeah, no, super excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Adam.
No, awesome. Anytime. And yeah, so let's start off with for the listeners, as I do with everyone else, is like just give us a bit of an insight in terms of your background, what you experience, and obviously where you're at today and how that's led to that.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Nadine, founder of the Vesta Club right now. I have spent the last 15 years within sort of scaling startups around the world. So originally from Canada, I've been living in Australia for the last 6.5 years. Um, I got into this sort of career path because at one point in my life I was a Division 1 student athlete down in the States, and the agency, tech recruitment agency that hired me originally, targeted student athletes. I think it was sort of being able to work within a team, deliver under pressure, etc. So it's definitely sort of part of my journey, and why I've sort of been starting on the recruitment path and then moving into the HR side of things.
Yeah.
In terms of like career, like I've worked across the Americas, EMEA, as well as like APAC, obviously being in here, roles like head of people, head of talent, chief of staff. I've been on like crazy, from like early stage scrappy founder teams, growing up to like 120, and sort of all the complexities within that journey. I've also been on like a neck breaking rocket ship journey from like joining a company at sort of early 200,
Yeah.
to then like growing the team by like, I think it was like 450%,
Yeah. Well.
while also scaling into like 11 new countries all within 3 years.
Yeah. Well. That's
So
awesome.
it was a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've also like spent 3 years of my career within the AAA video game studio, a Sega owned studio, which was like a
Yeah. Well.
wild segment from SaaS and sort of tech.
Mm.
But was really really cool to see, just the creativity and everything that goes into making that level of game. And we were partnering
Yeah.
with Microsoft on one of their biggest titles of Age of Empires. So yeah, that was just like a really interesting segue of like a video games, and also stepping into a world that, and studio that had been around for about 20 years, and then going
Yeah.
through sort of that next evolution that they needed to go on. So it's I've always been drawn to like the startup craziness, or like things that need sort of like big transformation.
Yeah.
Some people might think I'm crazy, but I think it's part of the
Mm.
fun.
Yeah. 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 I'm the same. Exactly the
Yeah,
same.
totally.
Yeah.
It's one of those things
Yeah.
of like, oh, it's the kind of the messier the better type of thing.
Yeah.
And like, how do you add that value and impact? Yeah, I think like throughout my career, I've just been very privileged to learn from some incredible leaders, teams, go on some incredible sort of journeys as well, and
Yeah.
ultimately, what is sort of been the thing that I'm like most passionate about is like working and getting teams, like building them, getting them really, really aligned and operating in a way that, high performance, high impact, whatever you want to call it. But like
Yeah.
the team loves what they're doing, they love who they're working on, and they're doing some really great work. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's sort of like a bit about my background.
Yeah. Yeah. And then obviously now you've obviously been running Vesta Club for a couple of months now. So what led to that? What was the journey there?
Yeah, I think, I mean, being sort of the last 15 years within the startup scale up space, one of the things with startups is like there's always these sort of like crunchy inflection points that happen. And then there's always these like really painful periods.
Mm.
And it's really typically like the business, and it's all good things, right? Like it's those
Yep.
good growing pains of like the business is scaled and it's taking off and the products really found that fit.
Mm.
But unfortunately, like the systems and also too that like the leadership team hasn't been able to keep pace with that.
Yeah.
So like I had a conversation with a founder yesterday, and he's like, this whole people thing is really hard. Like, it was
Yeah.
it was much easier scaling my product than it was like building out the team. And I know you see that all the time on the hiring side as
Yeah.
well. It's like,
That's
okay,
it.
how do we get the right people, the timing right, etc. And so it's like, trying to build a train, get it running
Yeah.
as quickly as possible,
Yeah.
while also laying the tracks, while also trying to like keep people that are on the train engaged, motivated, aligned, and then also like getting more people onto the train and be like, it's fun, come on, it's great, like we're doing
Yeah.
all this
Yeah.
great work.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really to help leadership teams reduce that chaos and support them in
Yep.
ways that typically if you are working at a startup, there's not a lot of time, there's not a lot of resources, and you're as a leader, you're the one and only that sort of head of marketing or whatever it might be from a functional perspective.
Yep.
And for me, I kept seeing these teams and sort of the nature of startups in a way that I was like, oh, how can we really focus in on that leadership team? And
Yep.
if you're familiar with like the 5 dysfunctions of a team, it's incredible. It's sort of like cutting through that noise and being like, how is this team actually operating, and where where on that sort of like triangle are they potentially falling
Yep.
down? And it's no fault to anyone. It's just like you have to be really intentional with building a team. There needs to be a huge high level of trust. You need to be able to work through conflict. There needs to be, even if you don't back the decision, like you need to be
Yep.
fully committed to it. Again, operating as a full team, and then sort of have that extreme ownership to then be able to get the results. So the Vesta Club and why I started it is like how we can get that leadership team really aligned, because everything else accelerates. Like
Yep.
the trust, decision making, being able to be aligned on who they need to hire, making the hiring decisions, especially in a market that's like really picking up, and then sort of the ripple effect through the rest of the culture of the company.
Yeah. And what sort of sized businesses are you going in speaking to? Look, where are they on their journey? Obviously, from a founder, are you looking at seed rounds, Series A? Where are they in terms of their journey?
It's been sort of a mix, like typically sort of that from seed to like gearing up to Series A, and maybe have just closed their Series A.
Yeah.
So a few of my clients, when they've just closed their Series A, their seed round, and they're like,
Yeah.
great, we get to like hire some people, like amazing.
Yeah,
Going from
yeah.
like that early stage to growing a little bit more. Another client, they're gearing up for their Series A, and so the founder's like, I need to be away from the business and fully dedicated to this capital raise
Yeah.
and funding round. And right now I'm the glue for everything. I'm kind of the escalation point for a lot of things, and I know I'm going to burn out if I'm trying to do the day job and
Yeah.
as well as a critical point in the business, but also a critical responsibility that I have to go and sort of get that rocket fuel for us to keep going. So it's probably like it's ranged, but really companies that have either like they're intentionally looking to like grow
Yep.
or get to a growth stage, and really want to put in the foundations from a leadership standpoint, and invest in their team.
Yeah, awesome. And do you find that when you actually speaking to these clients or prospects, do they know there's an issue before you speak to them? Like, because sometimes I'd imagine that like some of them would be completely oblivious there's a problem, and they go, no, we've got everything under control. Does that tend to be the do you have to kind of get that out of them, like that there is an issue?
I think no. I think
Probably issue is probably the wrong word, actually.
It's not issues. It's more
yeah,
like,
that's not an issue.
like this feels harder than it should.
Yeah.
Like I'm being pulled into things that I feel like I shouldn't be based on, the team that we've been able to hire, or,
Mm.
I'm constantly the decision maker on this, or meetings feel like super agreeable and I feel like we're all aligned. And then, a
Yeah.
day later, or even that afternoon, my, Slack starts popping off and it's like everyone's not like we just
Yeah.
agreed to it. What happened? Like it's been 3
Yeah. Yeah.
days type of thing. So I
Yeah.
think it's more of like uh, a recognition of like this is harder than it should be, but
Mm.
not able to like pinpoint what or why, and also being like there's got to be a better way for us to do
Yeah.
this, or I'm going to lose my sanity, or people are going to burn out, and like that's the furthest thing from what I want. Like I just want to be
Yeah.
able to like reduce the level of chaos,
Yeah.
um,
Okay.
and be able to focus on what we actually need to.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
is that
so
what you mean by founders hitting a wall? Like, and when it
yeah, like
is that? Yeah.
the wall. There's sort of like 2 points. There's like the wall and then the inflection point. So the
Yeah.
wall is kind of that like slow creep, when sort of what I was mentioning earlier of like they've been able to grow the team. They've got great people in seat. They put a lot of legwork to get those great people in seat,
Mm.
especially if they're of an earlier stage and don't really have sort of that brand recognition.
Yeah.
And they're thinking like this should feel a lot easier than it actually is.
Yeah.
And then they just feel like there's this wall that they can't really get around, and everything's sort of slowing down from like delivery, oh, sorry, we've had to
Mm.
move that out to the next sprint. Like
Yep.
there's just like these bottlenecks that are sort of piling up. And
Yep.
with those bottlenecks, people are like, especially in the startup world, people are like, we want to move fast, we want to learn quickly, and keep reiterating. And when that slows, like
Mm.
obviously people are going to get a little bit frustrated, and things are
Yep.
going to start to like bubble up, and then they're spending a lot of time on like the people issues and
Yep.
conversations, and they're like, why?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
that slow creep, and then it's like, oh my god, everything's on fire.
Yeah. That's right.
the
And
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, sorry.
And it's interesting. It's interesting though because it's like, and I've said this a number of times in other podcasts, is that like for the founders, it's the first time for them as well. Like it's not like
Absolutely.
they're going through this growth and they've come up with a great idea. Sometimes it might be a
Totally.
techie person that've got no kind of
Yeah.
um. I'm not saying all techie people don't have people skills, but they're more sort of techie and getting the job done.
Yeah.
Like they're finding that sort of growing the team and getting people on board and actually letting go a little bit is probably quite difficult for some of them as well.
Super hard. I mean, like
Yeah.
it's everyone has their craft, and being a leader is a craft in itself.
Yeah.
And people are really hard, and
Yep.
it's and people are in a constant sort of state of growth and evolution and different life phases and all the rest of
Yeah.
it, as well as the company going, on the trajectory
That's
that
right.
it's going.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
it's
all those things that they've got a balance of like generating opportunities, like selling the actual product itself,
yeah.
like creating the product, keeping that up to date,
Yeah.
the hiring, people management. There's so many different things that they've got to take into consideration
Yeah.
in those early days. You know?
Totally. Yeah. So many.
Yeah.
And that's just sort of like the sort of general running. If there's, say they've had to pivot their strategy, to be responsive to what's happening, like, especially
Yep.
in AI is evolving every single
Yeah.
minute right now. So they've had to pivot something, or
Yeah.
maybe they are doing a capital raise, or they just closed a capital raise. Like those are kind of those like inflection points that like hit really
Yep.
hard and fast. And like, even if it's coming, it's
Yeah.
still very jarring. And so it's like,
Yeah, exactly
okay,
right.
how do
And
how do we navigate this?
COVID was a
Totally.
perfect example of that. Is kind of some companies had to pivot and go, right, what are we going to do? And it was a really strange one with COVID because it kind of hit, everyone panicked, started making headcount reductions, and then actually we went the other way, and then like agency recruitment went through the roof because everyone was trying to hire at the same time and through the roof. So but in those scenarios that are completely out of your control,
Yeah.
you've got to kind of adjust to the market as well. It's and as a founder, I'd imagine that is quite difficult, especially when you've got other people that you're responsible for as well.
Yeah, and there's that's a huge responsibility and a huge mental load, and all the rest of it. And
Yeah.
ultimately, you would have started a company to based on the idea and the value and or what you wanted to solve. And
Yeah.
so there's so much extra weight on that, and especially like, you know, even just being in a leadership role within
Yeah.
startups, like it's quite isolating. There's not a lot of time. You can't really, unless you've invested in like building out your call a friend network. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, well, this is the information that we have right now. This is our best guess. I
Yeah.
know it's like going to piss some people off, but like, we're doing what we can with the
Yeah.
information that we have, and hopefully it works.
Yeah, and that kind of environment in that startup world is for certain people. I don't think it's for everyone, and you've got to have an appreciation that sometimes that strategy is going to change. Sometimes you 1 minute you're in one direction, next minute you're going somewhere else, and you've got to take that into consideration when you're going for those roles. Like I find that like there's sometimes when you're working with some early stage founders, they're looking for that person that could be working at like Google, for instance, as an example. And it's not, and sometimes that yes, it may look solid on paper, but it doesn't mean they're going to be successful in that particular company or role.
Yeah.
I think it has the opposite effect. So, but what do you see as some of the trends that you're seeing in those early stage startups when it comes to kind of leadership gaps? I'd imagine there's got to be a little bit of a trend there, is there?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yeah,
I think there's probably three if I had to. There's probably more, but the three that sort of jump to mind.
yeah,
I think there is, when you start and then you start you start small and then you start to scale, a lot of times there is internal promotion, which is amazing and incredible. And so having those OGs of the startup, like they've earned the trust, they've been in the trenches, like, the leadership team knows them through and through.
yeah,
They know the customers, the IP, etc., like the back of their hand. So it's like, this is a no-brainer. Of course we would look. And we also want to like reward and recognize how long they've been
yeah,
and what they've contributed. And as well intended as that is, again, leadership is a craft, and that might not be their skill set or their passion that they
yep,
want to get into. And that sort of transition from being an individual contributor to a leader is probably one of the hardest, because you're like, oh, I was just sitting next to you as my teammate yesterday, and now I need to
yep,
hold you accountable for the things that I know you aren't doing. Like, oh, this is just
yep,
hard.
yep, yeah, yeah.
So I think that's probably the one trend of like, people being promoted and with scale, and it's exciting, but ultimately throwing them into the deep end and not providing the support is creating a
Yeah.
lot of risk to the business, and
Yep.
to being able to like develop the culture and foster the people who are there in their careers as well. So that would
Yeah.
be
I've
sort of
seen
like,
that firsthand.
totally, like it's
Yeah.
so common, right?
It is.
And
And it's a shame. And it's
yeah,
typically would be like a really good example of that is like as a really good engineer they'll go into senior engineer, then a team lead, but then not give any kind of indicate like any training in leadership, no training in how to hire the team,
totally.
no training in how to do one-to-ones or performance manage or anything
Yeah,
else. And it's kind of like, right, you're great, you've been promoted and you probably get a little bit of an increase, but like it comes with all these challenges.
totally.
And then on the other side of that, you can actually see that they get pulled in for performance because the team's not happy or people are leaving. And it's like, I
I
don't know, you've
know.
not actually set these up for success, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that probably feeds into that second point. Like a lot of times sort of like conflict or feedback is actually avoided. Like, was there even a conversation with that engineer? Like, do you want to be the tech lead? Do you
Yep.
want to manage people instead of like, this
Yep.
is amazing, rah, rah. And they're like, okay, well, I guess I'm on this train. Like, I'll
Yeah,
go.
that's
Like,
right.
you
Yeah, yeah.
know? And
It's
so
true.
I think that's probably that second piece. Like giving feedback is really hard,
Yep.
but it is ultimately super critical to, even in a discussion within a team, whether it's strategy, what we're like planning from a sprint perspective. What direction do we need to go, and like having really robust conversations and different opinions is ultimately going to
Yep.
get you to a much better outcome than five people
Yep.
sitting in a room being like, yep, sweet, sounds good, yep, yep, yep. It's like, that conflict, as long as it's healthy and respectful and like handled in a
Yeah.
way, and it's done in a form that is really conducive to that.
Do you
Like
feel?
you
Do you?
need it.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I completely agree with you. Do you think that stems from the higher level, like executive level, like to actually create that culture of open feedback and being able to push back when needed? Like even if it's like an IC questioning the founder in terms of one of the decisions, like surely that's a lot more healthy than someone that's just going to sit there and go, yeah, sure, I like see a problem, but doesn't feel that they've got the freedom to be able to voice it. Do you think
Yeah.
that's like where the problem lies in some of these?
Yeah, like the how the leadership team works, operates, what they tolerate, what they reward, etc. Like that sets the entire tone for the
Yep.
culture and how
Yep.
everyone operates. And ultimately, when you're looking at someone who maybe has recently joined the company or at a much lower level, they're like, oh, it's actually not safe and I don't have trust to voice
Yep.
this.
Yep.
Or I saw someone voice it last week and, that wasn't good and I don't want to be that person. And, like,
Yep.
and then it just sort of creates this culture of yes or
Yeah.
okay.
Fear.
And like,
Yep.
yeah, and fear. And so ultimately that's not getting the best out of these amazing people that you hired
Yep.
and their
Yeah.
brains and being able to like, great, like, and, and there's different channels and forums to really like pull that feedback out.
Yep.
Or have those channels of feedback. Like you shouldn't be giving someone like in a meeting, be like, hey, da 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 da. Like maybe pull them aside privately after and give
Yeah.
them,
That's right. Yeah.
But it is one of those things where I think, people will follow what's happening at that leadership level, how that leadership team actually operates together as well.
Yep.
If someone can see that, two people in the leadership team have gone head to head with very different opinions on whatever it might be that they're discussing, and they all come out as a group really aligned on going on path A, and the leader who was advocating for path B comes out to the team being like, yeah, this is what I wanted, but actually here's the context and why we made the decision that we made to go to A,
Yep.
and here's our plan to support path A.
Yep.
Like that is hugely powerful, and
Yeah. That's right.
it's one of those things where if you can invest in, and it's definitely uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why
Do you,
people probably shy away from it, but
yeah. Exactly right. Do you see it with co-founders? Like
yeah.
they're kind of butting heads to like how do you find that causes conflict throughout the business, or is it a healthy kind of argument sometimes? Like let's say I've seen it,
Yes.
like two founders they're completely different in terms of the way they think, but it worked because eventually they come to the agreement and they're aware of what their strengths are.
Yeah.
Like how do you find that's played out in some of the businesses you've worked in?
Yeah, I think it's like with any relationship, whether it's co-founding relationship, someone on your team, like personal relationship, friend, partner, etc. Like there needs to be sort of like established almost like guardrails, and also like a
Yeah, boundaries.
curiosity of like,
Yeah.
I always say like get curious, not furious. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like how do you understand that perspective and understand where they're coming from and what might not be like spoken about, like really sort of digging into the why and also removing it personally, like
Yep.
in a work setting, like you are there to solve whatever it is for your customers or for your team.
Yep.
And especially as a leader, you have to be juggling both of those. It's not one or the other, because they both are so closely linked in terms of their
Yep.
happiness and, satisfaction and the quality of sort of experiences all around.
Yep.
But I think if there is sort of a showcase of unhealthy conflict at that level, it gets real uncomfortable real quick.
Yeah.
When you're like,
Yeah.
oh, mom and dad are fighting, like this is awkward,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and then it also like it just creates a level of distrust, and
Yep.
it just distracts from what
Yep.
you're all there to do. And so we're all human and we're all going to go through things in life, and we're all going to have our fine moments and then not so fine moments. But I think it's
Yep.
also being able to like, hey, I kind of screwed up in that conversation and I want to apologize, and like how do we go from here type of thing to like
Yep.
rebuild and move
Yeah,
forward.
that's right.
Yeah.
I think that's true. And if I look at some of the leaders that I've worked with, I think the best ones have been being able to be vulnerable, like
Absolutely.
and being empathetic as well. Like that, those are the two main kind of key things that I think good leaders follow.
Yeah.
And it's like sometimes the other one when you've got kind of ego in the room, I think that kind of just completely damages the
Yeah.
culture in the business.
Yeah, it's hard because it's like, as you said earlier, like it's potentially the founder's first time leading,
Yeah,
and we're all human and no one is perfect. So
yeah,
everyone's
yeah.
going to
That's
make
right.
mistakes, and so it's
Yeah,
being able to like learn from them, and especially in the startup world, learn quickly, apply
yeah,
it, and then keep moving forward. Yeah.
yeah. Awesome. So, what was the third point? Because I think we carried
Oh
on
yeah.
from point two. So, what was the third?
Yeah, sorry. We're like, "Do, do, do, do."
Yeah,
So the third point, I think you mentioned it earlier of like, looking to hire someone from Google or whatever it might be.
mm,
And so
yeah,
I think the third point that's really common, it's like, oh, we've hired this leadership team that are super decorated. They've been around the block. Like it's not their first rodeo.
yeah,
But ultimately there hasn't been that investment to ensure that they are operating as a team instead of like
yeah,
sort of focusing on their slices of the business, and sort of coming
mm,
as a group to report back on things, and sort of figure out and firefight whatever might be coming up.
yep,
And so I think that misalignment is as you said, like it trickles down quickly. It sets the tone
yep,
for culture. It definitely determines sort of the pace of the organization. So
yep,
if it's like, oh, we're looking to hire this person over here, we need to deliver whatever it might be. So and so's they're aligned, and then it hits a roadblock when someone's like, great, go deliver, and another leader's like, I didn't know about that. And then you're like,
yep,
oh, stalling out again. Like, come on.
yeah,
Like, why didn't you guys just talk? Like,
yeah, 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 yeah,
so I think, yeah, it's super costly. Like, it's,
yep,
especially in businesses that you need to be focused on delivering, getting revenue in the
yep,
door, delivering great service. I actually read, I wrote it down because I was like, I don't want to misquote. But misalignment at a leadership level can actually cost about 40% of your revenue. And it's like,
yeah. Well,
or revenue not like that's left on the table. So you're actually not getting that in the door.
yep,
Teams are 3 times slower in making their decisions, which
yep,
if you think from, even a people side, recruitment side, you're like, they're gone. Like
yep,
if we don't have that
yep,
critical conversation internally, proactively, if we're
yep,
not making a decision on that person, they've got other offers, like they're good at what they do, we need
yep,
to move quickly.
yep.
And then also on the employee side, you can actually experience up to 67% of employee turnover,
Yeah, wow,
which is
that's huge.
crazy. Like
Yeah,
that's just like an invoice that no one should see
yeah,
ever.
that's right. Well, I see it. I see it from a hiring perspective. There's a massive difference between a hiring manager that gets it, that is like understands the importance of pace and
Yeah.
like the detail that actually has to go into the process, to
Yeah.
someone who's less experienced, who tries to cut corners and like a team member leaving every 6 months or so. It's like there's you see it and it's highlighted. And sometimes it's not their fault. Like sometimes it's
Yeah.
actually they've been, like you said earlier, they've been put into a position that they're probably not cut out for. And sometimes you've got to be able to stand up and go, look, this kind of leadership role is not for me, and sometimes it's not just on the business as well. It's actually them owning it as well, I find. But
Yeah.
and like I say, I think it's a good thing that some businesses do promote from within, and they do get
Totally. Yeah.
it's a really positive thing, and it's a great sometimes. But like putting the wrong person in that role, like is such a massive, like, can be detriment to the business and the growth and where the business is going.
Yeah, regardless if it's like internal promotion or hiring externally, like there needs to be mutual alignment on both sides and like
Yep.
very clear expectations of what the reality is and
Yeah.
what they need to deliver. And I've found that it's almost easier to set those expectations externally with someone coming into the business because you're going sort of through like this is who we are, this is the
Yep.
teams, etc., like this is the role, this is like
That
these are kind of the
and that's
scary
missing when
bits.
it's internal.
Totally. And
That's missing because they don't go through the same process. They don't assess them the same way, and they don't go through like each step as someone externally would either. It's kind of
yeah.
like they it's kind of shortcut. Like, oh, we know who this is. Yes, we'll give them the opportunity. So there's a lot that can be done there. But what in terms of from your perspective and the Vesta Club then? So talk me through what that process looks like. So say for instance you pick up a client that's like said, look, Nadine, we've got issues here. Like issues, okay, that word again.
You keep
Here we
saying
go. Look, Nadine, we need you to come in and we want your services. Like, what would that process look like for these businesses?
yeah, I mean it depends. Like every startup and founder and leadership team are all different, so there's not really one size fits all. There's kind of like and depending on what they're facing as well and sort of the season that they're in, if you will. So for me, it's first and foremost, it's like, what's going on? What's keeping you up at night? Like, what's stressing you out the most? And let's really drill into that.
Yeah, and would that be in person, face to face, sitting down with them as a team, like with their founding team?
Which most of the time it's like mostly in discovery of like, great,
Yeah.
most of the time I'm having chats with the CEOs or founders of like where like what's the vision and what's the reality and like what are your complexities and strengths and what do you what do you want this to look like and what's on fire.
Yeah, okay.
So, but like in terms of working with sort of the founding teams, typically it's like great, after it's like great, I can add value here, and if I can, I'm going to introduce you to someone who can help with what you're navigating. But usually if it's like great, let's roll forward. We'll get that leadership team and that senior leadership team in a room and we'll go through a workshop. It's most of the time either a half day or a full day. And it's really focused on kind of hitting the reset button, talking through the things that are slowing the team down, getting better perspectives of how everyone's like wired and how they typically operate, aligning on as a group holistically what are the norms. Like, yes, I know that happened in the past, yes, I know there's always going to be history and context, but moving forward today, what do we want to build towards and what's dream state? And ultimately let's like air out what's not working and like put a plan to quickly address those so that we stop that drag and can keep moving forward. And it's really a great day for everyone to be like, step away from the day-to-day, like kind of hamster wheel that everyone's just like running like mad on.
Yeah, that's true.
They're like, oh, I had no idea you liked such and such, or that's how you process information, or I didn't realize that when you're super stressed, that's how you show up. I took it as and it's like, oh, let's just like break down barriers. We are all humans. We all have to wear masks and have different, responsibilities and complexities in our life. From there, it rolls into coaching programs with that entire group. And so that's over sort of the next 6 to 12 months. And that's really designed for the complexities of the startup. So there's dedicated time with everyone one-on-one, depending on what's happening in the business. Depends if there's maybe like a group session to sort of double down on whatever they're going to be facing coming up and how I can help support. I'm a really big fan of like, how do I teach people how to fish instead of just handing them a fish, and building those muscles. And so that coaching program is super critical to that. And it actually allows to like embed habits. Like you hear something once, you're like, yeah, sweet. That sounds
I
great.
think we've all been guilty of that, haven't we? Like the training session, we just wrote it down. Yeah, I'll implement that as soon as I get back, and it's like a week later, it's like gone out of your head.
Totally. You're like, that's
Yeah.
great. And then you like get back into reality and you're like, oh, I can't even remember what I'm having for lunch or had for lunch. You know, like it's just, so that's sort of typically how I work with teams.
And is those sessions there where you're saying you're putting in a plan of action for the team? Does that include the founders as well?
Absolutely.
Like, are they part of that? Yeah, that's awesome.
They're a huge piece of that leadership team. And ultimately, you know, everyone, again, leadership is a craft. Everyone has opportunity to develop. There's going to be new scenarios and situations that people are going to be facing. And maybe they've faced it once before and they're like, kind of messed it up though. So I want to do it better this time, but I don't know where to sort of go from there. And so it's really being able to have dedicated sessions like on a monthly basis. But then when the ad hoc stuff comes up or the spicy situations are like, hey, can we chat? I'm like, absolutely. So it's really being able to be on demand for the moments that you're like, I had no idea I was walking into that. Okay, great. And I said I would get back to them this afternoon. Okay.
And do you find that with that, like when you're having that discovery call with the founder, do you find that like when you actually go into these businesses that what the founder thinks is happening is a little bit disconnected in terms of what's actually happening day to day? Like how can they because I think that's probably, especially when you see founders handing over to lead, they've brought leaders on, they're handing it over, they're kind of a little bit more standoffish with the business, and kind of handing the reins over a little bit. Do you find that kind of
sometimes
is a struggle for some of these? Sometimes. And do you find that that's sometimes a trend of like how they there's like that disconnect between what they think is the problem in the business to what's actually happening when you speak to these leaders, and how can they fix that sort of disconnect? Like what's your kind of advice for that?
Yeah, I think it's like, as humans, we kind of have our perceptions and biases, and especially in a scenario of the startup world, like everyone has pressure. There's, pressure to perform, deliver results, revenue, a ton of uncertainty. So it's a very high stress environment.
Yeah. It is.
And there is also, in terms of like, just the pace of everything, like, oh, I'm not going to have that conversation, whether it's like uncomfortable or maybe like some conflict, or they're expecting some sort of, kickback. I don't have time for that, or I'm just going to put that in the too hard bucket and I'll get to it later. And you never get to it. So I think there is sort of sometimes a buildup of almost assumptions, or, not actually clarifying like, hey, why did you say this? Or why are you showing up in this way? Or, obviously worded a lot better. Like breaking down, hey, my expectations are this. Do you know that? No? Okay, cool. Well, that's why I'm really kind of on edge, because you're here and I need you to be here, but like neither of us knew, and we're sort of like speaking the same language. So that's really why, and why those workshops are so powerful, because the amount of light bulb moments of like, okay, or hey, I had no idea that you love context first and you want to understand sort of the scenario, or the person who's like the big talker and they're like, actually, I just want your Slack message of like bottom line up front, 2 bullet points, and then like what you need from me. Like, do you need a yay? Do you need a decision? Do you need a just, I've read it, like whatever it might be. So I think getting really clear on that, and that's for founders, that's for everyone operating in sort of a high-paced business. But
I found that with executive level, it's like they just want the snippets of information. They don't want that. It was a big learning for me when I sat in with execs in a meeting, and I kind of go on, as you probably tell with when I'm talking, I'll probably give too much information, and like, rather than they just want the snippets of it. And I find that was my biggest learning of going into those meetings. Yeah. They just want what's the impact, like what can we do, what's the impact, and that's it. Don't say anything else.
Yeah, exactly. So
and,
I think it's just like, in terms of how to bridge that gap from a founder or like a senior leader perspective, it's like have conversations with your team, you know,
Mm.
on a human level, but also like on a, you know, what's happening, what are the stresses in their world right now.
Yep.
Because as a leader, it's like it's responsibility to like remove those barriers and, you know, support that person as best as possible, because if they're running and, you know,
Yep.
fully engaged, they're going to do great work. But if they're, you know, roadblocked, frustrated, etc., like that's, you know, sort of a ticking time bomb.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. That probably leads me to my other question is like, what if you had like one thing early stage founders could do to improve leadership performance? Like, what would that be? Like, it.
Oh, just one.
As many as you
Yeah,
can,
no,
as
no,
many as you
no.
want.
I think even like there's kind of a sentiment of like, oh, I've been able to hire, you know, super experienced leaders, and they should know what to do, and they're even more experienced
Mm.
than me. You know,
Yep.
and but I think if there's sort of like a shift in perspective of like actually treating that leadership team like a product,
Yep.
that's going to be your biggest growth engine. So if that team is, you know, not only aligning on like what's, you know, what's being worked on and sort of the strategy, etc., and like the direction of where the business is going, but how they're working,
Yep.
that and that should be your highest performing team within the
Mm.
organization. And so if that sort of level of, you know, what do we expect from communication, you know, is, and are we closing loop on things? Are we doing retros? Are we like, what sort of the rhythms?
Yep.
And, you know, how do we handle feedback? You know, how are
Yep.
we rewarding behavior? You know, not only performance, but also like our values and behaviors and sort of expectations
Mm.
around how people show up here.
Yeah.
So I think
How early
it's,
would you?
yeah.
How early would you say they need to do that? Like, because is that from day one? Like, or would you say that when they get to a certain head count, they start need to think about that? Because it's, I'd imagine it's like the earlier the better, really.
Totally.
That
Yeah.
everyone comes through the business. This is how we operate.
Yeah. Well, I think even if you had like two co-founders in a room and that's the company, like how they
Yep.
operate and share information,
Mm.
communicate, make decisions, handle
Yep.
conflict, like those are really defining things that people will, you know, and when you're in a conversation from an interview standpoint, people are like, yeah, they're my people, or like, oh, not for me. Like,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
sort
Yeah.
of getting really clear on what's important, as
Yep.
soon as possible, because anytime you have more than one person in a room, there is an opportunity for misinterpretation,
That's right.
you know, people to get their back up on things, and if there isn't trust, to be like, hey, you said this and it kind of hurt, or like, I don't understand what you meant by that, or hey, here's some feedback, and they're not voicing that
Yep.
up, that's going to build up to a point that, unfortunately, it's, you know, not going to be on a happy path.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's interesting. Yeah, like I said, I think the earlier probably the better for in
totally.
those businesses to be able to come up with that. It's and you see, like you see the ones that don't actually they haven't put those guardrails in, and it's just a free for all.
Yeah, I mean, even
Yeah.
probably one of the smallest teams that I've worked with, they have probably about 11 or 12 like full-time employees,
Mm. Yeah.
and like a few sort of part-timers, just based on the size that they're at.
Yeah.
And uh, even then, it's like, oh, you know, it is a hard jump, because what worked for you at five people when you're all sitting around a table, like one
Yeah.
table,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
definitely won't work at 20. And then, you know, again,
Mm.
at sort of like 40, 50, and sort of so on.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of being
And
able to
also the
like,
people. Also
yeah,
the people is like the people that got you here, and not necessarily the people that are going to get you there as well. And actually being
yeah.
able to like own that and actually not be afraid to make like those calls as well.
Yeah, and you know, if you're having constant conversations around, you know, this is the direction that we're going, these are sort of expectations, these are the numbers that are like we absolutely have to deliver on, because it's
Yep.
kind of make or break. You
Yep.
know, and also these are how we expect people to show up. Like
Mm.
having those be constant combos,
Yep.
and then having that trust within your team, it makes it a lot easier to be like, hey, you know the you know the expectations, you know, unfortunately you're not hitting those, what's going on?
Yeah.
And you can have a lot of open conversations, and it could be that, going back to that engineering lead who got promoted, of like, I don't want to do this. Like, I thought it was something, I thought I had to do it. But I just want to look at code. I don't want to, I don't want to have another one-on-one, that type of thing. So
that's right.
I think the more that you can build that trust, and also back trust with like action and openness and vulnerability, will just like elicit more from your team. And ultimately, if someone's like, hey, this isn't for me right now, all good. Like, let's talk through a transition plan. Let's talk about how I can support you on that next step. What does your dream next step look like, etc. Then it allows the business to plan. It sets that person up for success. You can honor all the great work that they've done, and it's it allows the business to keep growing and bringing on the people that they need for that next sort of chapter, while they can also go and enjoy their next chapter as well.
Yeah, and what I found was that trust starts at the top, like the way they communicate, the way they show up. Totally. There's no point in you having values as a business and saying we operate this way, and then you've got the execs living by completely different rules, because that just breaks the whole trust across the business.
Totally. You're like, well, why do I have to come into the office and they don't? Or exactly like simple things. A lot deeper topics, but it's it needs to be fair. It needs to be equitable. Everyone, everyone's working adults and professionals. And so, we all have choices and options. And so, having the right people on board who are really engaged and excited about the challenges that you're facing, instead of like, oh, this again.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Well, I think it's just, it's just really important, and the leadership team sets that tone, and then it sort of like trickles down throughout. So it's one of those things where what is it? Your culture is a reflection of what you tolerate.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. And I always say it's how people show up, like when not when everything's going okay. It's when shit hits the fan. And when there's no one else watching, that's what real culture is. It's not like your ping pong tables or your beer tap in the kitchen. No, it's like,
definitely
there's so much more than that. No, but no, that's awesome. Like Nadine, it's been an awesome conversation. Really enjoyed having you on. Before I let you go though, like in terms of if anyone's got any questions or want to reach out to you about obviously what you're offering, like where can people reach out to you to?
LinkedIn. I'm on there a lot. So LinkedIn, Nadine Blackie. Also the website, the Vesta.club. And there's a lot more information on there, and also an opportunity to like book in a call, etc. So always happy to have a chat, and especially if it's even just exploring like, oh, you said this, and it's actually I see this in my team, just even building that awareness, I think is really important, because if we can all be more intentional with how we're showing up, how we're leading, be more open, like that's only going to lead to really good things. So, I think, always happy to have a chat. As you know,
that's awesome. That's right. And I do feel like we've literally scratched the surface here. I think that there's definitely an episode 2, I reckon, at some point.
If you have me,
but thank you. 100%. Well, thank you for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll keep in touch.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Adam.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Nadine.
Bye.